suggestion, but whatever floats your boat. All right, so as you noticed, and this is going to go quick, hopefully you'll have time to get started on some work. As you noticed, throughout section 1.1 and 2.2, do you remember we skipped all the fraction problems? You were probably like, yes, life is good, we're skipping them. Well, we didn't skip them, we just wanted to do them all together. I thought it was dumb to do a little here and there. These are not the toughest fractions you've ever had, but we're going to review how to do them. Our sign number rules apply. So if we have like signs, even with fractions, what do? Do we add and keep the sign, or do we subtract and take the sign with the largest number? Is there any? Add and keep the sign. If they're unlike signs, you know to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So, normally I let you do what you've learned, how you've learned it. This is the only time this year I'm going to make you do it my way. I do not know how people can do fractions without writing them vertically. So anytime you have fractions, I want you to start off by rewriting the problem up and down. Okay? With fractions, before you can add or subtract, you need that common denominator. If in your problem your smaller denominator divides evenly into the bigger denominator, then that's the one you're going to use. Would anybody in here have said that 15 was the denominator? Anybody would have gotten that on their own? The only reason is because 5 goes into 15 evenly. And when you use a denominator that you already were started with, you just recopy that numerator. But how do I get from 5 to 15 for the top fraction? Do you agree 5 times 3 is 15? That's where our multiplication charts come in if you didn't remember. Well, in order to not change the value of the problem, you have to multiply the top by the bottom's number as well. Because think about it, 3 over 3 is 1, so we don't change the value. What is 4 times 3? 12. All right, we don't need our choice. So 5 times 3 gave us 15, 4 times 3 gave us 12. So guess what? We have both positives. Like signs, you've been doing that since grade school. You add the numerators, 12 plus 2 is 14, and you write it all over your denominator. Mr. D, you may want to go on the homework ones and circle, or just let them look on you, because they're only doing a few, but that's on the warm-up page. So, all right, 14 15ths, not a big deal, right? Seem easier than when you did it in the past? Madison, any questions so far? You're really confused. Did you understand why we left the 15? Because 5 goes into 15 evenly, so he's the best common denominator. So I had to rewrite him as 15, so I know that 5 times 3 was 15. I had to do the top as well. Then you just add the tops and write the bottoms. So let's try it again. Same exact type of problems, only we have like signs. Well, you all just told me, like signs, you're going to add and keep the sign, so it's no different. Does 3 go into 9 evenly, kiddos? Yes. Since 3 goes into 9 evenly, I'm going to keep 9 as my denominator, and that means I just recopy the fraction that already has that. No work. I love no work. But you cannot add until you have that common denominator. So how do I get from 3 to 9, Brennan?
Times 3.
Times 3. If I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. So what is 1 times 3? Everybody in choral response, as Mrs. Cotton says. Go.
3.
Thank you. And it was already negative. So there you go. Now, like signs, I add and keep the sign. When you have common denominators, you always just rewrite the denominator. Guys, what's 5 plus 3? 8. And you keep the sign.
I thought it was 7.
Well, that's okay. If you showed me all that work, you would have lost just a little bit of points.
Really?
Anybody think this is easier than when you learned it before? It gets easier every time you see it. I'm not a fan of fractions, but the more I work with them, the better. We're going to come back to 19. Let's go down to 21. Do we have like or unlike signs with this guy? Unlike. So eventually we're going to end up subtracting. But my rule, and what I want to see on your homework tonight, is you rewriting the problem vertically. It's going to help us keep organized. And if you look back through your homeworks, these are all the homework problems that we skipped throughout the week. Okay. Anybody want to be brave and bold and take a stab at our common denominator? What do you think, Madison? Brennan, agree or disagree? Okay, she's right. Because 3 goes into 6 evenly, that would be the smallest denominator and the best one. If we could have chosen 12. We could have chosen 24. It would have worked out. We just would have had an extra step at the end. Since we used the 6, we rewrote the 4. 3 times what gives me this 6? Anybody? 2. So guess what? You have to do it to the top. And that's 4, and he was already negative. So, like signs, or unlike signs, you subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. Always rewrite your denominator. What is 4 minus 4? 0. And I don't need the negative. But would you have thought to tell me that that was just 0, or would you left it at 0 over 6? That's okay, but now let's think.
Please excuse this interruption. Meg Garcia to the Welcome Center. Meg Garcia to the Welcome Center.
If I have 0 pieces of gum and I say, hey friends, I'm going to give you all a piece of gum, but I have 0 to start with, and hand them 0 pieces of gum, how many do I have left with? 0. So that's why it ends up just being 0. But it's our sign number rules. Okay, let's look at 22. I'm going to erase this a little bit so that, well, I guess I'm erasing a lot, so that we can rewrite 22. This guy is unlike signs. So after our denominators, eventually we're going to have to subtract. But why is this guy different than the other two? Madison?
Because the denominators are just going to be regular. You have to actually do.
You have to think about it. Brennan, do you agree? Anybody have any idea what we could pick for our denominators? What do you think? Madison says 18, and that's the one I would pick. We could also do any other number. But if you can't see it, could you do 54? Did any of you learn just to multiply them together? You could have, but you would have had to reduce at the end, but there's nothing wrong with that. I like to look at multiples. Like 9 plus 9 is 18, plus 9 is 27. 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 6 is 18. And then the first one that they both come to is the smallest denominator that you will have. But if you multiplied and got 54, that's fine too. So, did I multiply right? Is 6 times 3, 18? Whew. Okay. So this guy then becomes a negative 15 18ths, because if he was negative when you start, he's negative when you finish. Can somebody tell me what the top fraction is going to become? Serenity. Right, because 9 times 2 is 18, 1 times 2 is 18. Unlike signs, though, we subtract. What is 18 minus 15? Anybody? It's positive 3, and the 15 is smaller, so we're going to keep it.
Wouldn't that top number be the 2?
Oh, it would? Oh, shoot. I was just thinking in my head, I have not had a mistake point all day. Okay, so Brendan, now you were right. What is 15 minus 2? How about negative 13, right? Because 15 minus 2 is 13, 15 is bigger. You know what? I was thinking, wow, I didn't have to reduce last period. So, good. Way to be. Think you could do that on your own? You only have like 7 or 8 of these tonight. But we're going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to send you off into your groups. Who remembers the rule for subtracting? What do you change the subtraction to, Serenity? Yeah. So this guy, 1 extra step. It would be 1/3 plus the opposite, or negative 1/2. So when I write them vertically and add them, anybody have any idea what my common denominator would be? Brennan?
12.
12 is a good one, and it would work. I'm going to do something else. What do you think, Lily? Yep, but Brennan, 12 would get us the same answer as well. Okay, so this guy becomes a negative 3/6. And that guy is 2/6. Anybody have a final answer for me? What do I do with unlike signs? Do I add or subtract? Add or subtract, Serenity? So 3 minus 2 is 1. The 3 is bigger, so I take his sign, and you always write it over the denominator. Everything we've done the last 2 days, except now we're doing it with fractions. If this was last night, would you have remembered to make that a plus? Back to back, right? It would be 2/12 plus a 3/4. That guy would have been a negative 5/12 plus 1/10. Remember, everything goes. But let's go back up to the very first mixed number one. And we're only going to do one of these. If you have your mixed numbers, you still write them vertically and you forget about that whole number out front till the very end. Okay, so what would the common denominator between 4 and 16 be? What would be the best one to use? Madison? Serenity, agree or disagree? All right, because 4 goes into it evenly. So he stays the same. Since we used his denominator, he gets to stay the same. Anybody have any idea what the 4 gets multiplied by? What do you think? 4, Maddie, thank you. And this is just added. So they become 19/16, and 2 plus 3 is 5. If you gave me that answer, you would get most points, but does anybody see anything wrong? This is the last example of the day, so let's go out with a bang. Yes, Lily?
So 5 would be a 6.
The 5 would be a 6, yes. How do you know that?
Because 19 is bigger.
Since 19's bigger, there is at least one more whole number. Right, if I divide this out, 16 goes into 19 one time with 3 left over. So that one time makes the 5 a 6, and then your 3 left over goes over that. Very, very good. Okay, so